don't care if you're Trump or you're Kamala. It wasn't about that. The Democratic Party, it's an evil party.
I don't really have a lot of faith in too many politicians, and I don't really have a lot of faith in Trump either. But he's good for precious metals. He's great for Bitcoin. He's great for cryptocurrencies because he's been very vocal about how he wants to make the U.S. the crypto capital of the world. This is definitely a much better 4 years coming.
For me, from my perspective, it's a no-brainer, Trump.
Are you looking to protect your wealth with gold and silver? Book a strategy session with myself or any of our precious metals experts. Click the link in the description below and get started today.
Okay, guys, welcome to a special episode of the Gold Awakening. Today, we're going to be covering the Trump election victory and the effect he's going to have on everything, from gold, crypto, to the economy. Is he going to live up to his words? So on and so forth. I was shocked. I wasn't shocked, but I can't believe how much he won by. I mean, he turned all America red. If you look at the final results now, it's like mind blowing. Like the swing states all went red.
I know. I actually had a couple buddies that actually predicted that, and I was like, I don't know, but yeah. So I mean, yeah, I was expecting Trump to win. I didn't expect it to be this lopsided. I thought they'd try to make it closer, but I mean, I think if you just ask around, you just take a bird's eye view of it, and you just see the amount of people that attend Trump's speak when he goes to speak, how many people show up versus Harris. I think it's obviously people are much more passionate and excited about Trump than they were about Kamala Harris.
For sure.
I'm definitely not surprised, and I'm actually obviously when it comes to politicians, I don't really. I'm like you. I'm a political atheist. I don't really. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a Democrat or Republican or any of that. And I don't really have a lot of faith in too many politicians, and I don't really have a lot of faith in Trump either. But out of the two, I'm definitely happy Trump was picked or selected or chosen to be our next president in the United States, because Kamala would have been really a disaster. So this is definitely a much better 4 years coming. Now, he's not going to save the United States. He's not going to save their financial issues. He's not going to save their debt issues. He's not going to save the currency crisis that is currently upon us, or the inflation. But there is things that will be positive, that Donald Trump's in the White House versus Kamala, for sure.
Well, let's get that, because this is a little bit advanced for the masses. Everybody's torn, right? It's like teams. Either you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, right? And the divide is so strong right now. They both hate each other, right? Dems can't stand Republicans, vice versa. But now let's go into it. Was Trump the lesser of the evils, like you said? You just basically, he was definitely the lesser of the evils. There's no doubt about it.
No question. He's number one. He's not the warmonger like Kamala is. Right. Trump in his 4 years did not go to war at all. He's not interested in escalating any of these wars that are taking place. He doesn't want to get involved in war. So to me, that's one of the biggest things I liked about Trump over Kamala. I think him trying to reduce taxes and what his plans are there, I think is going to be very helpful for business owners and corporations, which I think will have a trickle-down effect. They were both very similar in terms of the monetary policy. I think they're both going to be very much all about easy money, lower interest rates, more money printing programs, kind of keeping the game going, keeping the stock market high, keeping real estate high. So I think it didn't really matter who was going to win in that aspect. I think another big difference was, and you're seeing it right now with the price of crypto, is he has been very vocal about crypto and trying to make the United States the crypto capital of the world. What that's going to entail, we're not really sure. But he also did state that he wants Bitcoin to be a part of the U.S. reserve, similar to how gold is a reserve of the United States. So that's a big statement. And if that is the case and the United States of America starts buying Bitcoin as a reserve, I mean, that's super bullish for cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. And if the United States does it, you're going to see a lot of other countries follow suit.
Well, how are you with that, Mike? Are you okay with that? Because you're a guy.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
But you believe in the gold standard, right? That's what it should have been. Like money should have been backed up by gold, correct?
100%. I mean, money has always been gold for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So as soon as you go away from that system and you back your currency by nothing, like we are today, every currency in the world is currently a fiat currency, which is technically not backed by anything. Those always fail. And on average, they last 30 to 40 years before they fail. And the US dollar has been off the gold standard since 1971. So we're 53 years into this experiment. On average, these currencies last 30 to 40 years. So we're already past the average. We're on the last days of the US dollar and the US being the reserve currency of the world. So you're going to see some changes, big changes. So obviously you have the BRIC nations that are talking about backing their currencies by gold. They're talking 40% of their money is going to be backed by gold, and the rest will be backed by other currencies from those countries. So you have 5 countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And then you have a bunch of other countries that have already been added in, such as Saudi Arabia, the UAE. There's several countries. There's about 30 or 40 other countries that have applied to be part of BRICS, and they are all natural resource rich. These are countries that want to join these countries because they want to get away from the US dollar. They understand the US dollar is no longer a trusted currency, and they understand the US is no longer a trusted government. So they want a real system that they can trust and use to make payments for oil and other commodities. For example, they want to get away from using the US dollar. They already have started getting away from it. Russia and China no longer use the US dollar for trade. And it's just a matter of time before the rest of the world joins that force. And when that happens and the rest of the world starts using other currencies and not the US dollar will go down hard, and it will no longer be the reserve currency. And when that happens, that transition is going to be ugly.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen soon.
But will Trump save the dollar by doing this? By backing it with Bitcoin?
Well, no. It depends on how strongly he wants to back it. Now, if he wants to back it completely by Bitcoin, that would save the dollar. Now, I don't think that's going to be the case. The rumor was he wanted to buy, I forget the dollar figure, but it wasn't a crazy amount. I think $1 billion or something along those lines. But it wasn't a huge amount. It wasn't. He's not saying let's back the US dollar by Bitcoin exclusively. No, he's just adding that to a book of assets.
But wasn't he buying Bitcoin also to help with the deficit, to pay it off, like investing in Bitcoin, and then that would help?
Yeah, for sure.
Or is that even that's impossible? It's almost impossible to pay off
they're never going to be able to pay off the debt. That's all.
Yeah.
Fairy dust. That's not reality. It's not going to happen. Eventually we'll default on that debt. It's just a matter of how that's going to be structured and who's not going to be getting paid and what that default is going to look like. Because once you do default, the rest of the world loses complete faith in you, and they're not going to deal with you, and they're not going to use your currency. So it's really the end game. And that's what most economists around the world are feeling like we're at. We're at the end game of the United States being the reserve currency of the world. And we're at the end game of the US being the global power that they are. So we're about to see a huge shift. The power is going to move from the West to the East. And the East is being led right now by China and Russia. And that will continue. And I mean, they're set up in a much better way than the US right now. But there's going to have to be, the US is going to have to catch up. They're going to have to make a play as well. If BRIC nations do go to this gold-backed currency, the US is going to have no choice but to follow suit in one way or another. Whether they back their currency by gold, Bitcoin, silver, or other commodities, I don't really care, as long as it's backed by something. Because right now it's backed by nothing, and you're seeing the inflation. You're seeing the price of gold skyrocket. You're seeing the price of Bitcoin skyrocket. All those are signs of the end days of the US dollar. It's basically telling you those are gold going up as much as it has over the last year, which is about 37%, which is the best performing year in the past century, one of the top 5 best performing years in the past century. So this is very, very telling. When gold goes up as fast as it has, it's telling you that there's something wrong with the system. There's something currently wrong with the environment or the monetary system as it is today. And what is wrong with it is that there's no faith in the US dollar right now, and that people are moving away from the US dollar and they're going into other commodities such as gold. Central banks are buying record amounts of gold. All the central banks around the world are partaking in this. China, Russia are leading the way in terms of purchasing gold. And that's very telling. I mean, they're basically telling you they're betting against themselves in reality. They're not buying US dollars. They're not buying US treasuries. They're buying gold because they know exactly what's happening. There is a big transition that is about to happen. And anybody who's caught holding traditional US dollars or US treasury bonds, those are going to go down and go down fast and significant to the point where they'll be completely worthless. That's where we're headed. That's the end game. The end game is the treasury bond in the US collapses, and it's going to take everything down with it. Once the bond market collapses, because the bond market's been in a bull market for over 40 years. Bonds are inversely related to interest rates. Interest rates have been coming down for over 40 years in a row, and then they started to come up. Now they're coming back down again. The point is, Trump is going to bring interest rates down as far as he can. In his last term, he was trying to bring interest rates to negative for the first time in history. And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if he tried to make that happen again. He's going to do anything he can to make asset prices inflated, to make the stock market inflated, to make it look like the economy is better than it actually is. Because a lot of people see a good stock market, they see high real estate prices, and they have that false sense of security that the economy is doing okay. But nothing could be further from the truth. The economy could not be doing any worse as it is right now. The U.S. economy is slowing drastically. The Canadian economy, same thing. And it's not just North America. It's around the whole world. There's an economic slowdown that is happening at the fastest pace that we've maybe ever seen in history. So we're at the beginning of the end, economically speaking, currency speaking, government power speaking. So there's going to be a big transition that occurs over the next 4 years. And Trump just happens to be in power during this time. So I kind of feel bad for him because he's almost set up to fail. He's leading the United States at a time where they've never been weaker. And it should be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Really interesting. But you have the other side, the people that always say, we're heading for a crash, and the stock market explodes. Crash, stock market, all-time highs, crash. So I have a lot of debates with my friends about this. When I talk about that, they're like, oh yeah, whatever. They always say it's crash, and then it makes fools out of people, the stock market, because it's
100%.
Always
and there's been those people for years, the fear mongers, the people telling you everything's going to collapse.
Yeah.
I mean, what's actually happening is the currency is collapsing.
Exactly.
And that's kind of the silent killer, the thing that people don't really notice because they see their stock portfolio doing well. They're like, oh, my stocks are up 15%. I'm doing fantastic. This is great. Oh, my house went up 5%. My neighbor sold his house for an extra $100,000. Those are the things that people look at.
Exactly.
But the reality is, if you look at your day-to-day cost of living, it's skyrocketing, and that's not going to stop. So all the monetary policies that we have in place today are very inflationary. We're keeping interest rates suppressed. We're printing more money. We're buying bonds. We're not cutting government spending. We're keeping the pedal down to the metal, and we are just going for it, and that's not going to stop. We're just going to continue to inflate the bubble, which is going to result in a much bigger crash. So the more they inflate this bubble, the higher they allow these stocks to go, the higher they allow the real estate market to go up in price, the worse the fall is going to be. And this is the last bubble. This is the end. Trump is going to push it one more big, huge time. Mm-hmm. So you're going to see stocks continue to make all-time highs. You're going to see cryptocurrencies honestly explode over the next 6 to 12 months. I think Bitcoin will double from here at a minimum.
Remember, you could go to the crypto exchange for those cryptocurrencies, the crypto exchange.ca.
So, yeah, I mean, there's crypto's got a bright future.
You don't think now Trump has promised to reduce inflation? He was running on that, the campaign.
Okay, and what is he saying that he's going to do to reduce inflation?
Well, he never has a plan.
Yeah. Well,
I
that's
mean,
just because everything he says
yeah.
he's going to do is completely opposite of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Literally. I mean, he wants to lower interest rates. Okay.
Right.
He wants to keep interest rates low, but to do that, you got to print money and buy the bonds to keep the interest rates low. You can't just say, hey, we're going to lower interest rates and rates go lower. That's not how it works. You got to get into the markets and buy these bonds to keep the interest rates as low as they are. Because right now, if you look at the 10-year Treasury, it's gone from 3.5% to 4.5% in the last couple months. So you're talking like a 30% move in bonds in a couple months. This is very scary. And this is what I'm talking about, the end game. If that interest rate just keeps going, if the government doesn't come in and buy these bonds, the interest rates will be at 10 to 15 to 20% in no time at all. So what's going to happen over the coming months is Trump's going to have to, with the Federal Reserve, they're going to have to print more money out of thin air, which is going to create more inflation because they're going to want to buy these bonds to keep interest rates low as where they're at right now. They're not going to let interest rates go high. But you can't just say that. You have to actually do something to keep interest rates low. And that's what they have to do, is buy bonds at a high scale. And that's very inflationary. Keeping interest rates low is very, very inflationary. It's going to cause all prices of everything to go up. So he's going to have money printing programs, which is QE, quantitative easing, to be able to buy these bonds to keep interest rates low. He's also going to reduce the federal interest rate, probably who knows how many times, but the rumor is for the unforeseeable future, the U.S. is going to continue to lower interest rates. That's very inflationary. I doubt he reduces government spending very much. So that inflation's not going to go away. And who knows? There might be another type of COVID type event where it causes some type of hyperinflationary event, because they had to print, I think, $7 trillion during COVID under Trump's term. That killed us. I mean, that is the exact reason why we saw the inflation a year, 2 years later. Yeah. It was all directly related to those money printing programs. So everything Trump's going to be doing over the coming months and years is going to cause more inflation. So nothing he has said or any of his policies are actually going to reduce inflation. So, I mean, he could say he wants to reduce inflation, but the reality is he's not going to be able to.
And that was the biggest transfer of wealth of all time. The wealthier got wealthier, the middle class got wiped out, and the poor got poorer.
And I think it's going to be even worse. I think this time around.
Yeah.
The money printing is going to be more severe than it was during COVID, because that's how the game is designed. That's what a debt-based economy is. Whatever the debt weight was before, it's got to get even higher. Without growing that debt, the game is over. The system collapses, it freezes, and there's a credit freeze, and the banks have to shut down. So the only way this game can keep going is if they continue to print and devalue our currency. So inflation is here to stay. And I think that's something that people don't really understand, is how bad inflation is going to get. Because they tell you these things like 2%.
Yeah.
That's complete garbage. I mean, it's garbage. It's
nowhere near my groceries bills went from $150 to $400 a week. There's your inflation numbers.
Yeah, so that's not 2%, right? That's over 100%.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't know who they're trying to fool.
Exactly.
But the scary part is, like, you fast forward 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what is the inflation going to be like at that point?
Okay, Mike. Speaking of hyperinflation. Now, Trump came in and said he's going to end war. He's definitely going to end Russia, Ukraine. And then I think he's going to move on to, obviously, Israel and Palestine there, or Hamas. Do you think by ending those wars, that will help inflation? I think. And maybe because if we get into a World War III, it's hyperinflation.
Sure. But easier said than done.
Yeah.
In theory, it sounds great. I want to end war, but you're not even a part of these wars. I mean, how are you going to end this war?
I think he's going to definitely end Russia and Ukraine.
Okay, explain to me. Explain to me how.
Well, I think it's very simple. He's going to compromise with Putin. I think I think the United States poked the bear there. Obviously, with NATO. It's like if China came to Mexico and lined up nukes. What do you think? We're not going to attack? Well, they did the same thing to Russia, right? They use Ukraine as a proxy war, right? So I think it's an easy fix where you could compromise with Putin. Listen, and Trump is not pro-NATO. We don't need NATO. You know what I mean? That was
not.
Yeah, that was like.
But they're not going away.
I think he's going to definitely end that one. But I don't know what Israel, and because
he can't. He's on Israel's side. He's on Team Israel. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
United States is Israel in a sense. They are one and the same. So if Israel wants to go to war, trust me, Donald Trump is not going to stop.
Yeah.
And if Iran wants to go to war, Donald Trump's not going to stop. Like, what can Donald Trump do here? I just feel like his hands are tied, and I don't feel like he's got any say in the matter. Again, I think these decisions are made by globalists, not presidents of countries. So I don't really think Donald Trump's going to have any say when it comes to war. I think war is going to unfold the way the globalists want it to. Because at the end of the day, Donald Trump is a globalist. He's not a lone wolf. He's not somebody who's looking out for the better interest of the United States of America. He works for the central banks, and he takes their orders, and he's going to do whatever they want. If they want a war in the Ukraine, there's going to be a war in the Ukraine. If the central banks want a war in Iran, there's going to be a war in Iran. It's really that simple. So Donald Trump can say all he wants to get votes and to make people like him. But the reality is he has no say when it comes to war.
But the counter argument to that is his 4 years prior to that, he never started a new war. So he does have the data, the proof to prove that.
But it wasn't the time for war from the globalist perspective. Okay. Yeah. So everything's got a timeline. The globalists run on timelines. Everything is strategically planned to the day, to the hour, to the minute, to the second. So just because there was no war during Donald Trump's time, I don't think that's a lot of credit to him. I just think it was the timing of his 4 years. I think this 4 years, I think it's a completely different world. And to try to say that you're not going to go through war over the next 4 years because Trump is in power, I think is ludicrous. I think there's going to be a lot of war. I think war is going to escalate. And the reason I say that is because that is exactly what always happens before the end of a financial system reset or a collapse of an old system. And I think that's the era we're in right now. We're at the end of the US dollar. We're at the end of the current financial system as it is. And we're moving to a whole new system. We're heading to central bank digital currencies. We're heading to a new power. We're heading to a new empire. We're heading to BRIC nations is a big thing that doesn't really get talked about enough. I don't think that is gonna force the United States of America's hand. So you're going to see a lot of change happening. And to just say that war is not going to happen over the next 4 years, to me, it's wishful thinking, and it's not realistic.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
Because they're not going to go down without a fight. I mean, the U.S. isn't just going to say, okay, we're no longer the U.S. reserve currency. We're going to become a third world country. They're not going to go. Look what they've done in the past. They go to war every time somebody looks to abandon the U.S. dollar. You know what I mean? They took Iraq out. They took Libya out. They take everybody out who tries to leave the U.S. dollar. So if these BRIC nations do decide to abandon the U.S. dollar completely and create their own currency, like, okay, then what's the U.S.'s response to that? I just don't think they're going to go down without a fight. And it'll be interesting to see what that all entails.
Yeah, we're really going to see if Trump is what he's all out to be. Do you think he's going to come in there and tackle on the swamp or the establishment? Or like you said, or is he's part of the establishment? He's just camouflaged,
Totally. He's playing a role like any other politician. He's an actor at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And he's a good one at that. And a lot of people like him.
And he's hilarious.
He's hilarious. He says things that people are thinking. He's not your typical politician. He's not refined. He's not politically correct. He says what he's thinking, and people like that. Some people don't like it because a lot of times he says things that are inappropriate or offending. And if that kind of stuff bothers you, you're not going to like Trump.
Plus, he has the media against him, which half of the stuff about Trump is lies, and they debunked it, and they still roll with it. It's insane. Sure. And that's why the Dems lost. It was a terrible loss for them. What they like, for me, from my perspective, it's a no-brainer, Trump. And I don't care if you're a Trump or you're a Kamala. It wasn't about that. You're talking about a party, the Democratic Party. They're for censorship, open borders, mass immigration. There's nothing wrong with immigration. My parents are Italian. Your parents are Italian.
Sure.
But they came in the right way. You know what I mean? They had to be sponsored. You can't have open borders and people just come in truckloads. Obviously,
and we pay for them too, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then your hospitals get full. It's a disaster. You need control over that. Anybody for open borders is insane.
If you think your money is safe, think again. Our economy is on the brink of total collapse. Think back to the 2008 financial crisis. Inflation skyrocketing, stocks tumbling, and banks on the verge of collapse. Sound familiar? It's not just history, it's a warning. And ignoring this warning could be the biggest financial mistake of your life. In 2008, gold and silver were by far the best performing assets. That is why now is the time to invest in precious metals. At Can-Am Bullion, you can order both gold and silver directly from our online store. Can-Am is also an authorized dealer with the Royal Canadian Mint, so you can be rest assured that you are dealing with a reputable bullion dealer. Do you really want to wait for an economic collapse? Now is the time to make a smart and informed decision and protect your wealth with gold and silver.
Click the link below to book a consultation with myself or any of our precious metals experts.
I think that's honestly where he won the election. I think
100%.
That was huge. And I think that's a big positive for Trump. And I think that's probably one of the big reasons he won. I don't think it's about financial. I don't think it's about any of his other policies necessarily. I think it's the borders.
The border issue really got him. That was number one by far.
I think
it was such a no-brainer. And you could tell the Democratic Party, I think, showed their hand. Like, it's an evil party. In California, you pass a bill, no voter ID. That, to me, I don't even know how stuff like that passes. I find that insane. Like, so you're basically telling me that you want to cheat the election. How could you have no voter ID?
Well, that's exactly why they allow it, right?
And we're the only country that has that. The only.
Oh, really?
Country,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, 100%. They came up with that stat. We were the only, not us. Well, we're Canadian, but our neighbors, the only country that has, even us, we have voter ID. Canada, you go vote, you got to show your ID.
That's crazy.
I don't know how stuff like that passes. That's mind-boggling to me. Like,
I don't know how anything passes if you look back at all the things that we follow, all these rules we follow. I mean, it's obvious that there's a higher power that makes these decisions without our say.
So from what you said right now, if I own gold, I own silver, I'm happy. I think it's going to go up. What's the impact of Trump on precious metals, Mike?
The impact on Trump on precious metals is very positive.
Very positive. Okay, good.
Because he's going to create more inflation.
Yeah.
He just is. He's very vocal about keeping interest rates low, keeping the economy going. He's not going to allow for a recession or a depression during his term. He wants stock markets at all-time highs, which we're at right now. But in 4 years from now, if it's up to him, he's going to make sure that the stock markets are even higher than they are today. So I think that's a big part of his platform, and it's a big part of who he is. He wants to make money for himself too, so I think that might be part of it. But yeah, I think he's going to keep interest rates suppressed. He's going to keep the money printing going. He's going to create more inflation. And the best hedge against inflation throughout history has always been precious metals. You can even look at the last 12 months. Gold and silver are the best performing assets in the world, directly related to the inflation. That's the biggest fact. The other parts is obviously uncertainty in the world, the economic slowdown, the war that is happening all over. BRIC nations backing their currency by gold potentially. These are there's so many reasons why gold and silver are performing well, but the leading factor is the inflation, and Trump's just going to keep that inflation going. So he's good for precious metals. He's great for Bitcoin. He's great for cryptocurrencies because he's been very vocal about how he wants to make the U.S. the crypto capital of the world. That's huge. That's a big statement. Having Bitcoin as a reserve of the U.S. dollar as well, buying billions of dollars of Bitcoin and keeping it as a reserve for the U.S. and to try to strengthen their currency is a huge statement.
Now, there's nothing for sure in life, but I'm telling you, the signs are pointing to crypto. Like you have to get in Bitcoin right now with Trump in office.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I don't know what people would be waiting for. I mean, you got every single That's such big confirmation when you have the leader of the United States trying to make crypto a big thing and making the United States the crypto capital of the world is such a huge statement. The biggest country in the world is now the most powerful country in the world is now going to be the leader in cryptocurrencies. Like, what are people negative about crypto on? Like, I'd love to hear just one thing right now, because everything that is happening in the world is super bullish for cryptocurrencies. Everything. You can't say one thing negative about cryptocurrencies. And if you do, you're probably uninformed and uneducated on the topic. You don't really understand it, which is fine. But I would just strongly suggest that people look into it, do their due diligence, learn about Bitcoin. You got to be a part of the game, because the reality is Bitcoin one day will be $1 million per Bitcoin. There's no way around it. And it might even be before the end of Donald Trump's term.
Michael Saylor, is it Michael Saylor?
Michael Saylor from MicroStrategy.
Exactly. He predicted, I don't know if it was in 10 or 20 years, that Bitcoin will be worth $21 million.
Yeah, 13 million.
13 million.
Sorry. But he has a range. He has a range from 13 million to 49 million.
Oh, 40. Oh my
49
God.
is the most bullish case. And that's in, I think he said 20 years.
Yeah.
I think 20 million in 20 years makes sense. I think by the end of this term, I think in this bull market, just in the next 12 months, you're probably going to get to 150 to 200,000 Bitcoin. And then at the end of Donald Trump's term, another bull market, you might get to 700,000 to $1 million.
Right. So that million is not far away.
No, it's going to be here before you know it. I mean, look at gold. I mean, when I was telling people my gold projections not too long ago, people were like, yeah, and there's no way. And here we are. I mean, gold's approaching $3,000 US. We were just at $2,000 US a few months ago.
Right.
So it's moving fast. Bitcoin's moving fast too. Bitcoin was $20,000, $25,000 less than a year ago, or less than 18 months ago. I think we did a podcast not too long ago where we were talking about how Bitcoin was $25,000 and it was a great opportunity to buy. And here we are at $76,000 Bitcoin.
By the way, we got to show off your predictions of the past episodes, because you've been on point and
they're starting to come.
You've been on point with silver big time, and gold and Bitcoin. Now, not to get what about the Bitcoin? Everybody knows. Where do you see the altcoins in this with Trump? Are they going to ride the coattails of? Yeah,
that's a very good point. And honestly, I think altcoins are going to do amazing, because Donald Trump is not just bullish on Bitcoin. He wants to make cryptocurrency. He wants to make the United States the crypto capital, not the Bitcoin capital, the cryptocurrency capital. So he also has his own cryptocurrency, a Trump DeFi coin, where you can borrow and lend on his platform. Okay, so that's very, very bullish, because the big concern was the governments are going to come in and ban these alternative coins and say you're not allowed to borrow and lend on this platform. We'll deem it illegal. But now that Trump's in here, Trump actually has his own coin that does just that.
So he's got it.
So I own a lot of DeFi coins, and I mean, one coin, my second largest holding, it went up 30% in the last 24 hours because of Donald Trump. Because DeFi, decentralized finance, is going to be a big part of our future, especially if Donald Trump's going to advocate for it. That's super bullish. And I think altcoins, they're still very cheap. A lot of them are still 80, 90% down from their 2021 highs. So I think even these coins just getting back to those 2021 highs, you're going to be seeing like 600, 700% returns. So, I mean, Bitcoin is the big one that everybody talks about, and you might see that perform. It could double in the next 12 months. So 100% return, but some of these alternative coins will be going up 500, 600, 1,000% over the next 12 months. And that's super exciting. And I think it's a great opportunity. I think cryptocurrencies are great opportunities, and I think precious metals are a great opportunity in this environment.
Yeah. And where do you, I know we talked a lot about gold, but let's talk about silver, because right now you have Trump coming in. I think he's going to bring back fossil fuels, right? So he's going to, and I think he's already made a statement that he wants to kill these green initiatives. So the EVs and stuff like that, will that affect silver at all? Because silver is used in a lot of these.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that was the knee-jerk reaction when after Trump won, silver went down 5%.
Yeah.
In the next 24 hours. And that was a direct reflection of his stance on electric and just slowing down on the green initiatives. But the truth is the demand in the silver is not coming from the United States. It's coming from the rest of the world. It's China, it's India, it's Russia. Exactly. Russia just announced they're going to be adding silver to their reserves, similar to how Donald Trump wants to add Bitcoin to the reserves. Russia wants to add silver. Wow. That's a huge, huge statement. If you start seeing countries like Russia and China adding silver to their reserves, I mean, we already have a major silver shortage right now. If that's to happen, I mean, the sky's the limit for silver. I don't think it really matters what Trump does or when it comes to green energy. I think the wheels are in motion, and I think the electric cars are something that they're going to try to make happen regardless. It may not be to the extent that they're talking, but there will still be growth in that area. But the solar panels is where I see the biggest growth, because right now 40 to 50% of all the silver gets mined in the world gets used up in solar. And India and China have the biggest growth in solar right now. And that's going to be going on for years to come. So regardless of what the United States does, I don't think it is. I mean, it matters. It will have an impact, but it's not necessary for the price of silver to go up. The shortages in silver are still going to be just as bad, and they're going to get worse. And the industrial demand for silver is exploding regardless of what the United States does.
Do you got any insight now? A lot of people here, just talking with friends and stuff like that. And plus, we're an automotive city here in Windsor, and now an EV city with the battery plant. People are panicking because they think Trump comes in. Now, Trump is a nationalist. He likes to keep everything in America, and he's threatening tariffs already. Do you think Canada is going to be impacted with Trump more so? Or do we have, or maybe the change of guard where the Conservatives come in and Pierre might be a better relationship with Trump and save Canada? Because I know he doesn't like Trudeau.
That's what I see. I do see that. I see the Conservatives getting in, and I see Trump and Pierre having a better relationship. So I don't think, and I just heard Trump recently talking about Canada. He feels bad for the Canadian citizens. He feels bad for what we're going through.
Because we live in a communist country. Yeah.
Well, and he actually said that.
Yeah, I know.
And I think he wants the best for us. And I think since we are his neighbors and they need us as much as we need them, I think I think that relationship will be strong for a long time. So I don't see him implementing tariffs or trying to steal business away from Canada. I think there's a lot of other countries around the world that we can worry about, not Canada.
He threatened Mexico more so. He never mentioned.
Mexico I could see. He definitely doesn't want these American companies like the big three moving their plants over to Mexico, because obviously that's the trend right now. And I think he'll do his best to keep incentivize businesses to invest into the United States. So I do think that's going to be a very big positive. The tariffs, I think, is a disaster. I don't think that's a good idea at all. If you go throughout history, tariffs have never worked ever. All it does is creates more inflation. So you talk about what Trump's reflection on what he will cause to inflation. If he imposes tariffs, that is going to cause major, major inflation, because all that does is bring the price of everything up. So what you were used to buy from China at a certain price, now because you added these tariffs, now it's going to cost an extra 30%. I mean, that goes right directly to the end consumer, and they got to pay for that. So tariffs are not a good thing, and that's going to cause major, major inflation.
That's a good point too. I think maybe he uses that as a scare tactic as well.
He does. Yeah. He does. Yeah. I'm surprised he's still using it, because most of the world knows how useless tariffs actually are.
Yeah, exactly. We covered a lot here. Is there anything else? The Trump election, and where do you see him delivering in? Where do you see 4 years from now? Let's say 4 years from now with Trump, it's going to be the same, you think, right? Inflation will still be high.
Inflation will be higher than it's ever been. I think the middle class, honestly, 4 years from now, the middle class will be completely underwater. I just don't. I mean, if your groceries are $200 a week now, by the end of his term, they'll probably be $400 a week.
Yeah.
So I see a double. I just think the cost of living will be unattainable, and I feel bad for Trump because he's in term at such a bad time for the United States. I mean, the whole world knows this is the end of the U.S. being the empire that they've been for quite some time now. So he's in a really tough spot. So anything can really happen under this next 4 years. It could be calm. It could be. He's going to do everything he can to keep it calm and keep the markets as high as they are. But by him trying so hard to keep the markets inflated, he's going to cause major inflation. And the people that pay are going to be the middle class. So the 1%ers in his term are going to do amazing. The wealthy are going to get richer. But the middle class is going to get much more poor. So there's just going to be a bigger disconnect between the haves and the have-nots. So that's kind of how I see it. War, unfortunately, I don't think he's going to be able to save the day when it comes to war. I think world war is upon us, and I don't think there's any way around it. So
I think he needs to listen, because if he has war and stuff like that, they're really, like, right now, Trump promised, like, it's almost like when Obama got elected, it was like this hope. You know what I mean? This guy's like, everybody bought into Obama, and then Obama was a complete disaster. He inherited 2 wars. He went to 8 wars. He put 5 million people out of homes where he could have saved them. He was pure an establishment guy, total hype. Now, Trump is kind of like that. You had the entire United States go red, and we have this new hope. He aligned himself with RFK Jr., who's going to abolish all this unhealthiness. America's like full of poison and unhealthiness from God knows, from vaccines to our medical establishment is horrible. You go to the grocery store, 95% has a poisonous ingredient. Now you got help by RFK bringing in the mix. Elon, who's been freedom of speech fighter, who's now talking about buying CNN. So there's rumors right now all over the internet that he bought CNN. So that brings a lot of hope, even to me, who's a conspiracy theorist. I kind of want to believe that, right? Because
I know you want. That's the problem.
Yeah,
you want to believe it.
Yeah.
The reality is, it's smoke and mirrors.
It is, eh? That's sad. I don't want to hear that, Mike.
It is sad, but it's sad. But think about it. Look who he's fighting against. You think Donald Trump's going to have a chance against Big Pharma? Like, Big Pharma is the most powerful institution. Yeah. You're not going to be able to win that war. So I don't think Trump even wants to even think about that. And then what was the other thing you mentioned? Elon Musk again.
Yeah.
I don't believe Elon Musk, anything that comes out of his mouth. Kennedy, I love what he's doing, and he's shedding a light on the on how bad our medical system is, and the vaccines and pretty much everything negative about our medical system he's exposing, which is fantastic. I just don't think anything's going to be accomplished from, unfortunately.
Well, one thing he wants to do, he wants to get rid of fluoride in the water, and I've been wanting that for years here, because we have it too. And why are we ingesting fluoride? It's a neurotoxin. The studies have come out, it lowers IQs in children. I mean, the list goes on and on.
It just hardens your pineal gland, which is your spiritual side. Yeah. Without that, and that's the goal, right? And again, look who you're fighting against. You're fighting against the establishment. You're fighting against the Satanists. You're fighting against people who control the world. That's a tough battle, and I don't think Trump's going to win that battle. And
which leads me to this: you think we'll look back on this. You think he's going to release the Epstein list, like he said?
Again, I even think that's all distraction.
Yeah. Okay. So
even the P. Diddy stuff, more distractions. What is actually going to be accomplished by any of this? Like, think about it. Even if some of these people go to jail, what is this actually going to accomplish?
Well, I think it red pills, a society, right? Because if Bill Gates went to jail, now people would be like, whoa.
That's not going to happen. I mean, these guys are untouchable. These guys have.
You're talking about Bill Clinton, Bill Gates.
All untouchable. These guys are all untouchable.
Yeah, you're right. It's too good to be true.
They own the court system too. I mean, they own the medical system, they own the court system, they own the media, they own the politicians. So if they own all of these people, how is Donald Trump going to be able to fight any of this? He doesn't control any of these. It's the globalists that control these, and you're not to fight. That's a losing battle. Trust me, if he does go to bat and fight for us against these establishments, that's amazing. I just have a really hard time believing it. Because he had 4 years in office. What did he do? He didn't fight the establishment, not one bit.
Well,
I mean,
that's the thing. People don't know he hired the establishment. He was drain the swamp, and a lot of his team was. And then he was like, "Well, I didn't know any better, and I was lied to." Well, let's see now. Now you know. I want to see who he surrounds himself with. Now RFK is cool, and I really want to know who he hires. If I see some establishment guys, I'm done.
It's going to happen. You're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
I mean.
Well, I'm with you because I don't believe in any I come from the school is we're only going to save ourselves.
Right.
The people will save you. That's it. No politician will save you because it's impossible. I think the last real politician was JFK. In my eyes, he was doing the right things to make America better, and that's why he got killed. There's no doubt.
He's the last person to ever even mention the words "end the Fed," right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Ever since he got taken out, you haven't seen one U.S. president even bring up the Federal Reserve.
Good point, Mike. Very good point. You're right.
And you probably never will again. And Trump had 4 years to fight against the Fed, and he didn't.
It never comes out of his mouth, right?
He bows down to the Federal Reserve, and that, to me, tells me everything I need to know about him. I don't really care what he has to say about anything else.
Yeah.
Because as long as that just tells me right off the hop who he listens to and whose rules he follows. And it's the central bankers, and the central banks run the world. So he's not going to make any major impact when it comes to the establishment and stopping what's currently happening. I mean, I hope maybe he does. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
I hope you're wrong too, of course, but no one wants to. I mean, that's a very dark, you know what I mean? Where we don't have we don't have a Democrat leader that'll save us. We don't have a Republican, conservative. None of our politicians are against us.
You never will. You never will.
Yeah.
I mean, and if there is a politician that will potentially fight for us and try to save us, he's not going to win.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
I mean, that's really the bottom line. And we've had people like that in the past, the Ron Pauls of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't even get a chance.
Yeah, exactly. But now Ron Paul is joining Trump.
I saw that.
Yeah, he might be in one of his.
That would be amazing. Again, whether that happens or not, Ron Paul is 91 years old. So
yeah, exactly. It's a little too late.
I mean, it would be great. I'd love for it to happen because he gets it. He's one of the very few that actually understand it.
Exactly. And I like Thomas Massey as well. Shout out to Thomas Massey. I think he's the only politician really in America that's totally legit.
Give me a little bit about Massey.
Well, Massey came out, he was on Tucker Carlson, and he explained AIPAC. AIPAC is Israel. He said every Congress member has an AIPAC member. Right. And he said, and by stating that, you could say how Israel has a stranglehold over America, right? How can every Congress member have an AIPAC sponsor where they have to talk to their AIPAC before they make a decision? Now that's not very American, and that's nothing against Israel or anything, you know what I mean, or any country to say the least. But in Canada, America, it should be America first. It should be Canada first. How do you send billions to Ukraine when we need so much help here? Like we're in Canada.
How much did Canada just send? I read that yesterday.
40 billion.
Like, how is that even possible?
You think about, Mike, if we could have, we're in Windsor, Ontario, if we could have just 1 billion and you put that in the hospitals, think how much better our life would be. I mean, everybody here, you go to a hospital here, you're waiting till, if I go to the hospital right now, I'm there till 7 a.m. You know, it's we got free healthcare. Thank you very much. But
Yeah,
I mean,
it's definitely not free.
So why wouldn't they put money towards that? Why wouldn't, like, it's so, you could tell that
Corrupt. It's just
it's
corruption.
so
Who knows
corrupt.
where that money's going? It's definitely not in the right hands. And,
Yeah.
it just shows who's in power, and it's.
But they sugarcoat it, and people buy into, oh, we're saving the people of Ukraine from this big monster. So people buy into this stuff. It's like, oh God. So that's why I like Trump in. Trump's more of a red pill guy. I think people wake up. I like that. Yes, I agree with you 100% too, but I'm glad we got the lesser of the evils.
For sure. I'm super happy as well. Yeah. I mean, he's not going to save the day. He's not going to fix all of our issues, but he's the lesser of two evils. And for that, I'm happy that he's in there for 4 years.
That's what I believe that too. I think he's going to fix the bullshit issues, like the cultural issues and the woke issues, transgender, all that.
Even all that's big, because that's our culture right now.
Yeah, exactly. He'll save those, but then the big ones,
he's not going to touch.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to touch.
Yeah, exactly. He'll go after the small little wins and get those, and honestly, that might be good enough. He's not going to fix the big issues, and I'm okay with that. The system needs to collapse, and we need a reset anyway. So let's just get onto it and make it happen sooner rather than later. The quicker we move on to a new system and a better system, the better. We just got to go through this rough patch, and hopefully it happens under Trump's term.
And you heard it here on the podcast, and you could see it on Google. Do your research. Gold all-time highs, silver exploding, crypto exploding.
All-time highs in Canada. Silver hit all-time highs in Canada recently.
Yeah, there
Bitcoin
you go.
All-time highs all over the world. Gold all-time highs all over the world. I mean, it's...
And you know what? If you need help out there, go see Michael. He offers free consultations. You come in, you could do it over the phone, you could do it virtual, you could come see him at the office. You know what I mean? And just sit down and talk, and then make the judgment for yourself. But people need to be diversified in metals and crypto 100%. I know a lot of you out there are in the traditional assets of real estate and stocks and bonds, but you got to have some. You got to get started.
You need that insurance. You need, that's how I kind of try to tell people. It's like, that's your insurance, that you have to own precious metals as an insurance policy. And that's how I look at it. And I even think Bitcoin is also an insurance policy. It's a hedge against inflation. If inflation gets as bad as we think it's going to be, precious metals and cryptocurrencies will be the leading performing assets in that environment. And that's exactly who's led the way in this past 12 months. Cryptos and precious metals have been number 1, 2, and 3. And that's going to be the same thing here on out. 2025, I promise you, it'll be crypto, gold, and silver will be leading the way again, and likely for years to come. So you're not too late. Just because prices are at all-time highs, you're still early in the game. Silver's got a lot of upside. Silver can go up 20, 30 times from these current prices. So there's a lot of money to be made, and that's how I would look at it. I wouldn't be negative and look at this as a collapse that's about to happen, and it's somber and it's doom and gloom. I look at it as this is the biggest opportunity of our generation. And you got to take advantage, because when this collapse happens, whoever's able to buy up these assets at a cheap price, you're in a great spot. And that's exactly what I plan to do. I plan to take some profits from my metals and my crypto over the coming years, and then buy the assets that really got depressed. Let's just say stocks are down 70, 80%. That's a buying opportunity. Let's just say real estate's down 30, 40%. That's a buying opportunity. And I want to be in a position where I can buy as much real estate and as many stocks as I can when that collapse happens. Because who knows when that collapse is going to happen. But all I know, and in the meantime, before the collapse happens, the assets that are going to go up the most in price are going to be precious metals and cryptocurrencies. So you got to own as many of those as you can. And then you take your profits on those and you buy the depressed assets in a few years. That's my playbook, and that's how I think it's going to play out.
Awesome. Great way to end the podcast. This has been great. Can't wait to see what Trump does.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
All right,
buddy.
guys.
Thanks, Marcello.